Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting Dartington here. I'm Andrew Morris. I'm Development Director at Dartington Social Research Unit, which I shall tell you a little bit about for those who may or may not know. We're a very small charity. We've been about 50 years. We've got a very small office down in Dartington, in Devon, a very small office in London, and an even smaller office here in Glasgow. Very small, I mean 2 people. So we're a very small charity. We've been going for 50 years. And we focus on data and evidence and helping public systems, public commissioners use data and evidence to improve outcomes for children and for young people. And we're doing that for 50 years in the UK and internationally. And I'm going to tell you a little bit this morning about a model that we've been experimenting with called Try Before You Buy, which is basically a variation on the theme that we've been talking about this morning, but I hope it adds to the rich texture of the discussion and the debate. So, try before you buy. We're all familiar with try before you buy. If you're buying some new shoes, you try them on before you buy them. In a supermarket, it might tempt you with a little bit of cheese. Think, try it before you buy it. Or indeed, if you're buying a car, you'll take it for a test drive. So we're used to it with goods. We try them before we buy them. But we're also used to it in terms of internet services. If anybody's got Spotify or Netflix or Amazon Prime, they'll often tempt you with a try before you buy kind of deal, where you can try it for maybe 1 or 2 or 3 months on a trial period before you buy. And it tends to work to something like this. You have a try period and then a buy period. The try period is free and the subscription period is the pay period. And there's 2 decision points. The decision point at the very beginning, you enter a contract. It's normally set up a direct debit. And at that point, the free service begins. Then 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3 months if you're lucky, there's another decision point, which they hope is by default. You forget about it and it just carries on and rolls forward. Well, there's another decision point where you can opt out obligation free. That tends to be how these things work. The clear benefits for the buyer in that, because it supports experimental buying. You can try something risk-free. You don't have to commit. It reduces uncertainty of the purchase and it's obligation free. There's also clear benefits for the seller because it helps them to get a product into market. They can demonstrate the benefits, but obviously it comes at a cost. Those free periods, those try periods have to be funded somewhere. Those bits of cheese have to be bought. I'm going to tell you about how we've tried to apply this principle of try before you buy, not with goods, cheese and cars, not with internet services, but with a small charity innovation, help them to scale. And this is an innovation called Safe Families for Children, who are based in England. It's an American idea, started in Chicago about 10, 15 years ago, and brought to England about 3-4 years ago. It's a very simple idea to provide alternatives to going into care for children, very young children, not between 0 and 10, alternatives to going into care for short-term stay. They do it by providing 3 types of volunteers: a host family volunteer, a family friend who will help the family with whatever particular problem they're going, and a resource volunteer who would normally provide behind-the-scenes support, maybe purchasing furniture or white goods. Basically surround a family with short-term care needs, maybe a single parent going to hospital for an operation with no alternative family, provide short-term support on a voluntary basis by agreement with the family. That was their idea. They were operating in the northeast, in 3 or 4 local authorities just in the northeast of England. They got a very large grant from the Department for Education to expand that into another 20 local authorities within England. And the commercial and contractual model that they used, we worked with them to develop, was try before you buy. And it worked exactly like this. The Safe Family service was provided to 20 local authorities for free, obligation free for the full year, funded by the Department for Education grant. At the beginning of that trial period, a contract was entered into. A procurement was undergone and a contract was entered into. And at the end of the 12-month period, if those outcomes specified in that contract had been achieved, in this case it was reduced numbers of children going to care system, reduced family stress and improved infant mental health, measured through a randomised control trial, which Dartington was undertaking. If at the end of that 12-month period, those outcomes were met, specified in the contract of decision 1, a further decision was made that they had to continue. If the outcomes were not met, the service was discontinued. They tried before the buy. The grant from the DFE funded 20, this service in 20 additional local authorities in England, and then if it was successful, if the outcomes were met, it was free to the local authorities, but if the outcomes were met, agreed, they had to enter into contract, try before they bought. And again, there were clear benefits for the buyer in terms of local authorities. It supported their experimental buying. They didn't have to, they could try something, if they weren't sure about it, they could purchase this, you could try it in their area experimentally. It reduces the uncertainty about whether or not it would work for them and whether or not it would work, and it was obligation free. At the end of 12 months, if it didn't work, it stopped. It creates, for the seller, in this case the charity, it created a market for their product because it could demonstrate the benefits to it in 20 areas based upon the track record that they had. It could demonstrate the benefits, but again, it costs money to fund those 20 trial periods. But there are also benefits for the funder. In this case, it was the Department for Education, because it made their money go further. Those 21 years that they purchased became 60 years in effectively, because another sets of years were purchased on the back of it. And it provided a single commercial and contractual model to help innovation go from to scale, from investment funding to contract funding in one single commercial contractual model. And it had inbuilt decommissioning for things that didn't work. There was no decommissioning to happen, it just stopped because it wasn't working. So that's what we tried with an organisation called Safe Families in the last 1 or 2 years. And in theory, it sounds all very neat and clean and tidy and simple and straightforward, but in reality, it was actually pretty messy and difficult and complicated. And I want to share some of the things that maybe worked and maybe some of the things that didn't work to aid the tapestry of the conversation. The first challenge, the first thing that we encountered was actually nobody got a full, free trial period. And the reason for that was that the money was on a fixed timescale from the Department of Education. All had to be spent by a certain date. It was inflexible money. So it had to be spent by a certain date. So every time you offered a free period, the free period was getting shorter and shorter and shorter because the money all had to be spent by a certain date. That didn't quite work out as planned. What also didn't work out quite as planned was that every local authority, and I mean every, bought before the free period finished and before the results of the evaluation were in. Every. And we had a randomised control trial going on, but to the opposite, decisions were being made on other factors. That was interesting. The other problem that we encountered was a procurement issue. We didn't have, as Kenneth was mentioning with the PSP, was a procurement point between the try and the buy. This procurement point was pre the try period, so we didn't encounter that problem, but it was a new model of procurement, and although when we talked to chief executives about it, they're all up for it, but when it got to commercial, contractual procurement, legal people in local authorities, it was challenging and some interesting conversations were had. So we began to think about what worked and what didn't work, and we began to learn from our mistakes and ask ourselves a couple of questions. And the questions we were asking ourselves were, can this try before you buy model, which has worked with challenges and problems and difficulties, has worked, could it support other local authorities to do experimental commissioning? Question. And if so, what kind of services is this appropriate for? Because it's not right for many things. This kind of thing wouldn't be right for it. But if it was, what kind of services would it be appropriate for? The other kind of question we began to ask ourselves was, this try before you buy was funded with grant to try and then contract to buy. But what happened if the try period was funded not by grant but maybe by a loan or maybe by some kind of equity? And what kind of organisation would be right to be funded by loan and by equity? And how would that affect the buy period? And we began to ask ourselves those questions. And we began to ask ourselves questions, how would we overcome the problem of a binary outcome in try before you buy? Because you either try it and then you buy it or you don't buy it. There's no middle ground, so it's quite a risky proposition for somebody who's not a grantor. So an investor, a lender or an equity investor, it's quite a risky proposition because you either try and you buy and it's a binary outcome. So we began to ask ourselves those questions and talked to lots of people. Through all that, we developed an idea and a proposition based upon our learning, based upon our conversations, based upon what worked, and based upon what didn't work. I think our proposition that we're experimenting and talking to and progressing is this. And we're calling it a Children's Investment Fund. Dartington, as you know, has got 50 years of experience in looking at data and evidence about what improves children's outcomes. And we're thinking about what kind of fund would it be that could improve outcomes for children at scale. And scale is important here. With Safe Families, we talked about it got into 20 local authorities. In Rogers' classic diffusion theory model, it's gone from push to now pull. It's in sufficient numbers of local authorities that others are saying, can we have a bit of this? It seems to be good. You need to get to that kind of 20 to 30% scale to go from push to pull. Something that can produce rapid and cashable savings in public systems. I mean rapid. Safe Families produce results within 6 to 7 months because a child was either diverted from care or not immediately. Immediately, a foster family was receiving payments or not. Or some kind of adoptive shock. It received immediate cashable savings. So what kind of other things would produce rapid and cashable savings in public systems? And we're interested in 4 public systems in particular. 4 public systems where high-end children's mental health, care, children in and out of the care, children in and out of the hours of mental health services, special educational needs, and criminal justice. Very high-end needs, very high-end big spending, say, departments, public systems, rapid and cashable savings within those systems. That provides the right finance and the right scale of innovation. Safe Families was funded by grant finance, but now we've got evidence of generating revenue from 20 local authorities. That's probably right for some kind of loan now. You can demonstrate they can generate revenue from offering their services. Different cycles of the innovation scale probably require different kinds of money, grant, loan, equity, or indeed a blend of those. That funds on a try before you buy basis. There's a win in there for the charity because it's a single commercial contractual model. There's a win in there for local authorities because it's experimental risk-free buying. And there's a win in there for investor because there's scale and potential return. And that seeks to create a portfolio of try before you buy deals that creates an investment on a return on the portfolio of investments to overcome the binary problem of try before you buy, which is you buy or you don't buy. You have a portfolio of something else, you minimise that risk of some working and some not working. So try before you buy. We've tried it in England. It's a variation on the theme in many ways of what you've been talking about. We've tried it and we're in England with 20 local authorities with a particular innovation. We've taken that, we've socialised and we're learning from that, and this is where we're thinking of taking this next around the Children's Investment Fund using Dartington's knowledge and experience and improving outcomes for kids. So that's our idea. We'll add it into the rich tapestry of ideas out there, and good luck.